fine. I keep my sketch in this folder here, my title in that one there, and this is going to be my working folder. This white frame is going to be my bleed edge. I typically do the same layout for kind of all my book covers and things that I work on. Anything that goes under that white border, you'll probably never see, but I know it's there, and you need this for kind of printing, so I typically, have that there, but I just turn it on every now and again just to check that the image still looks good. And what I was saying with the magenta lines was, you can see from the background that this whole image is on a kind of an angle. So what I often do while I'm working is I just kind of use the rotate tool to tilt my canvas to get the image back straight how it should be. Yeah, Rudy's right, you do get what you pay for with OBS. At least somebody told me straight away this time. At least we only had, what, like a minute's worth of silence. I think on a previous stream that same thing happened to me, and I'm using a Rode Podcaster rather than the built-in mic, so for some reason it just switches it off when it actually goes live. But I think on a previous one there was like 15 minutes worth of silence before somebody told me I had no sound. I think a lot of people do streams without sound, so I think people just thought it was a stream with no sound. But then I think someone noticed that I was explaining things with hand gestures like this. So now the main focus is obviously we've got 3 characters, big round window, and a spaceship outside. So delete that layer. First thing I want to work on is that big round window. So rather than try and draw a perfectly round window, I'm just going to use the ellipse tool here. I've got my Wacom remote just out of sight, so I can hold down shift and pull that to the right size. I can turn down the opacity, just drag that into place, and I can always free transform it and just hold down shift and alt to get my just to keep the shape while I free transform it, and that's pretty much perfect. And just up the opacity again. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get the background right. I know there are amends coming, and the amends are most likely going to be to the characters. So the first thing I want to do is get the background spot on, because I know if I can get the background spot on, the rest of it will kind of follow. Hopefully that makes sense. Bear with me for a split second. There we go. So I'm just setting up my iPad to make sure that I can see what's going on. This is the trouble with live streams, you can never actually see what's going on. Hi Cloud Slicer. Okay, so now that I've got that kind of there, that means things like the spaceship, for example. I think with my sketch, I at least made sure that I drew things on different layers. For example, the stars were on different layers, so even my sketch was quite, like that. So for example, when I grab this, when I finally find the layer that has it on, so that's the shape there, I can grab that, pull that out, drop it on there, and I held down Alt while I did that, so I'd have 2 of them. I'd always have the sketch one still in place. And all I'll do is make that black, or I could actually make it a dark grey so I can still see the ship. And I don't have to even worry about the sketch now. I could turn the sketch off and come back to that if I wanted, but I'll leave it where it is for now. And everything can be subbed into that layer there. And I can bring this nice and big to work on this. The first thing I want to do is just make it look a bit more spacey out there. So for example, actually make it black would be nice. First thing I'm going to do is just work in monotones rather than colours. And I can darken the whole thing up later. It doesn't have to be kind of a perfect blackness everywhere. You know, that would be dull as well. That'd be boring. I just want it more patchy in a way. Next thing I'm going to do is just add another layer on while I can still kind of see everything in the background. And just drop a layer of grey, a lighter grey, behind the ship. That way, no matter what I drop in behind, I can always see where my ship is. And I like the design of the ship. If anything, what I'll do is I'll paint the ship over the top of the sketch or under the sketch, and then delete the sketch that I've created. You know, I'm not worrying about colour or anything just yet though. And the design of the ship might change. I mean, it might horrendously change anyway. It always depends on what clients come back and give you in the feedback. But the clients saw the ship and we talked about the ship anyway. So I don't really expect the ship to change. But for right now, I'm just going to rough it in. Have some fun with it. Tell you what, I can be in closer than this. Normally I'm fine to do things like really small, but I know you guys are watching, so just in case anybody's watching on like an iPhone or something, then you want it to be nice and big on the screen. You know, as well, you don't have to do this all with going around with a brush. You can always turn on a lasso tool, especially if it's something more mechanical like this. Just go around and find the points. And then just paint bucket it in like that. That looks fine. And what I'll do is over the top of the sketch add another layer. Just remember to sub it in on the layers. And I'll go for a nice lighter colour. And again, this is really just monotone. Even though there's a slight colour being added here, I don't care at the moment. Really I should, but everything's going to get washed over the top of this, so the main thing is that I'm just getting the rough shapes in there. It doesn't even have to be perfect at the moment. In fact, if anything, I should be zoomed out a bit more. Otherwise, I run the risk of just getting it all a bit too perfect. If anyone's got any questions, let me know. Hi, just incredible. How you doing? Where's everyone from then? I take it this time of night. For me, it's night time now. But I take it this time of day. I'm mostly speaking to folks in America. Is everybody an artist, or if so, what kind of devices are you using? What are you painting in? Are you painting in Photoshop? Are you painting in Clip Studio? Or it was really nice. My live stream from the other day. Actually, I tweeted that earlier because I knew I was going to be doing this. I tweeted my live stream. Just I thought it might drum up a bit of exposure for this. It's really nice to see that Wacom themselves actually retweeted it. Thought it was nice. Oops. Didn't want that to go all the way over there. And on another layer, still just sub that layer in. I'm actually just going to pick a grey from the background. Slightly bigger brush, just to speed things up. I'm just going to knock in some shadows. Not just shadows, but elements of the ship that might be darker anyway. All down here. Hi, my channel. Oh, sorry, my watch channel. See, now, Just Incredible says he uses Clip Studio. And I hear so many comic book guys saying they use Clip Studio. And it just seems to be the go-to app for comic book guys. And it has got some really nice stuff in it for comic books, for comic book art. Do you know, I've been watching Star Wars Rebels all day. I just had it on. I've just had it on kind of continue all day, so it's just been auto playing. So I could so easily just grab some yellow, paint some Republic signs and stuff. Though I won't. That's what this is starting to look like in my mind. Another thing I do want to quickly add, though I don't really have to at this point, is just a slightly softer brush and just add in some engine light. Why am I doing this in colour? I'm not going near colour yet. Change that to white. But you notice how I did that with hue and saturation. Rather than trying to delete it and repaint it, I just downed the saturation and up the brightness. And that changed it straight away to white. If I'd have downed the saturation and turned it darker, it would have been black. But later on I can add the red colour over the top of that. No, it's not for a comic book, it's just for a novel. But funnily enough, I know the writer does come from a comic book background. So I mean, when it's finished, it will probably look a lot more painted than comic book style. I come from a comic book background. You know, my early influences were comic book style. So the way I start my paintings tend to be more comic book style, and then they just get more and more detail until they're paintings. You know, but there's a lot of artists who tend to do a lot of comic book style stuff. You know, in the same kind of way. I'm just going to soften all that up with a blur. I'll come back and get the ship in a bit. For right now, another thing I know has to go in this window. Oops, did I just add a layer? Yep. I'm going to do this like this again. I have to have another planet in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom right out and use my free transform tool just to have the edge of a planet in there. And this is good because I can kind of work out where to have that planet. So say if I have that planet out the window, is it kind of there? Is it there? Is it over there? See, working with layers in this way just kind of really works, because especially later on if you have to go and make changes, it can really help you. Are me and Aaron going to do another stream together in the future? Yes, we are. Yeah. Normally, me and Aaron do streams on his channel. I keep meaning to say, come on, let's do a stream on mine. But, yeah, we are going to do one. It's just finding a matter of when. I have a 2-year-old and he's just had kids as well. So it's just, yeah, it's hectic trying to find times when we can both, you know, kind of do a stream. What I might do is just pull that out so it's not so round. Like that, just makes it look bigger. I kind of almost want it to clip the ship a bit. But yeah, we will do more together. Why do you prefer the ones where Aaron's there too? Is this CS6 or CS7? This is CC. This is Photoshop CC, so it's the monthly paid one. It's the newest one, CC 2017. I kind of like that, where it clips the ship but the angle's too steep. There just seems, whoa, too much planet maybe. So I'm kind of I think there's going to be fine. Like that. Maybe if I reduce the size a touch. I'm probably overthinking this a little bit. Never mind, eh? What I can do is, with that, I can rasterize that and turn the layer lock on. I have to rasterize it and to able to turn the layer lock on. But I'll go for a nice big soft brush and then just start making it look more planety. By making it look more like a real 3D object. One thing you always get with a planet is an aurora, so I need this kind of light. You're only going to get that if you use a really big brush, but when I'm doing it properly, I'm probably going to have to use like, it's all about the amount of layers you use, you know, to make it look really impressive. But for right now, I can kind of spot that in and make it look passable, and then come back to it. The good thing is as well, because this is on layers, I can kind of move it up and down, and that's almost like playing with the opacity. Will I make tutorials? Yes, I will. And in fact, I am doing tutorials now, but they're on Patreon. I am doing in-depth tutorials, and I am giving away the brushes and the PSDs and high-res files and everything, and it's all on my Patreon. And there's a link on my YouTube channel right at the top of the page, and there's also a link in other places. But yeah, obviously it's better doing it that way and being able to give you lots and lots of stuff and being able to spend a lot more time on the tutorial, you know, and give you hour-long tutorials rather than just here's a quick tutorial. You know, I'm doing this live stream today because I'd have to do this work anyway, so I figured, I'll do a live stream. This piece I am just going to quickly do by hand, which is I'm just going to grab this bit of light here, because you always get a bit of light that just... I say that you always get a bit of light. Yeah, like I know that. Oh yes, the thousands of times I've been into space. But you see, I've done this using like a few different brush strokes, so I'm just going to go in at the ends and soften those out with my eraser. And I actually want that brighter, so I'm just going to go to hue and saturation and up the brightness. And again, on this one, I could add another layer and just... I could actually just add that right around the planet. The only trouble now is that I'm losing that white border, so what I might actually do is do something I don't like doing, which is actually using a layer style. But I can add a white stroke like that, I'm not sold on it, but I know that later on I can make that work. You know, it's like, for example, with the planet's surface, I can always just mix things in. And you can use custom brushes. For example, I can just grab one of any custom brushes. Like I've got some cloud brushes here, and this is the same cloud brush that I used on the live stream last time, actually. But I can just grab that and start powering that in, and instantly it just looks like cloud formations on the planet. As long as I'm careful with it. And it helps break up that horrible white border as well. Then I can just go in with my eraser and just tidy that up where it's gone over the edge. But do you know what? I'm just going to get rid of that white border. I'll come back to it later. I create a lot of my own brushes. I don't create most of them. A lot of these, I still download brushes from other artists as well, now and again. Some artists that I know and things like that. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But in truth, I actually... Oh, that's why it wasn't working. In truth, I actually prefer just to stay away from... I actually prefer to stay away from custom brushes where I can. I just think, in reality, most of the time you can tell when a custom brush has been used, so it's, are you adding anything? I think in the early stages like this, it can be helpful, and then later on, you got to spend the time. It's like that. I've just added the starry sky to it, but later on, I might come back and say, right, we're actually gonna come back and actually paint the stars one by one. Susan said it's ruined. Hope not. What do you mean? What part of it is now have I done to ruin this? Adding a bit of black in there just to kind of put the focus where I want it to go. Remember, we're just painting inside this little window at the moment, which is kind of weird, but at the same time very freeing. Now, if you remember in the sketch, we had an explosion and secondary explosions. They're very cool. I'm not 100% sure. I think I might just leave those for now. I think that's enough work inside the window for me to be able to say, hey, let's come back. So for right now, we'll leave the window there. And I'll line this up. I don't know why I'm thinking that'll work. But what I want to do next is actually add another group on. Or another group in. Don't fancy a sandwich at the moment. And start drawing the actual ship itself that we're in the background. Now I could do this with vectors and do lines and stuff like that, but oh, it's Bob Ross reference. Oh, the clap ruined. Ah, it's a happy accident. Tell you what I am gonna do. Just gonna bob a little cloud right up there. I'm gonna go back in and just grab this first circle that we made. Bob that in the layer below. And upscale it like that. That way we have a window frame. I could even make another one of those to come a bit bigger. Like that. And change the kind of colour of that. Yeah, like that. So I think the best way to work in this is actually going to be just to start roughing these out with the line tool. You know, so I'm not killing myself to try and draw everything by hand. So for example, I could even turn off the window. I can see how much I can get away with on one layer to kind of outline. This section over here. It's clearly the same section that's over there. I'm even going to try and bob the initial floor on this. I'm just using the same color at the moment because really what I'm doing is I'm making kind of masks, which is kind of fine by me. No, I'll kind of turn that one off, create a new one. And do the same again. And then just make that color a bit lighter. Drop that in. Then you see when I turn that back on. And go underneath, make another one. And this is just a lot easier than trying to draw everything in there by hand. Oops. Apart from when it malfunctions on you. And when I turn those two back on, yeah, I just kind of need something to bridge that gap with. So I can make that darker, make that window frame even darker than that. And then I can add in kind of another layer behind the two circles. That's just kind of a fill color of that. Oops. Now it's starting to look like Looney Tunes, and I'm actually getting worried. What I will probably do at some point is just take half of this and then flip it and use it as the other half as well. But I'll only do that after I get a certain way down the line. So I'll draw both halves, and then whichever half is the best I will then take. And I could just continue on the path that I'm on now. But for right now, what I want to do is I want to actually select all, copy merged. Then I'm going to turn all these layers back on, come up to the top, and on top of everything, I'm just going to paste that flat image and free transform it and put it in the middle of my window. That way I can look at this and remember where all the lines are. So there you see, when I'm looking at this corner here, I know it's that corner there. And I don't have to keep turning layers on and off to see what I'm looking at. See? I mean, all these layers could be flat now, but I don't want them to be, so. I think for right now, what I want to do is actually look at the piece as a whole and kind of get the hallway looking kind of right and get the atmosphere in there. The atmosphere out the window's fine. I just need to kind of build that into my hallway now. You know, and it works pretty well in the sketch. I just need it to work well now in this. I mean, a big problem that I've got automatically here is that my floor is way too light. But then again, I think my floor would be pretty light in the real thing. But still. I'm going to turn the layer lock on. And I'm going to use... Actually, I don't need the layer lock on. Where we're going, we don't need layer lock. I'm going to create that shape on a new layer. And I'm going to fill color it with the same whitish color that the planet's made of. And just fill color that. It didn't look so full colored. There we go. Now what I can do is I can say, right, well, this is the floor. There's the light that's kind of hitting the floor. But it would actually come through at like the tip of the window and be distorted. So I need to zoom out like really far, make my image really small, which is annoying, but and then do that kind of perspective thing. You know, like that. That can look kind of cool. You know, the harsher it is, the cooler it kind of looks. Still need it to feel like a circle though. But what I need to do is I actually need to chop it off before it hits the floor, or is it afterwards? It's one of the two. It's afterwards because it's there. It's like that. So that's the light coming through the window. And then I can Gaussian blur that entire thing. I will just grab this floor now. Layer lock that. Use a big dark brush. Just make that darker. Because where there's light, there's shade. And I think the light is too harsh, but hey, Gabriella. Even though turning this layer to screen wouldn't actually affect anything yet, I'm still gonna do it. I think that's the kind of level that light should be at. And even though this makes no sense in terms of light, it still looks better if I kind of erase a bit of it at the foreground. I'm barely touching it here. I'm just kind of softening it up, really. Like that. You know, if this was a kind of a smaller shape, I could come in at the back and delete bits, but that'll do for now. The only trouble is, while live streaming, it eats up your processor speed, so Photoshop moves slower on me. Susan asks, at what point in my career did I decide to invest in the Cintiq HD? Was it a matter of wow, must have, hit the buy button, or more considered? Before this, I had the Wacom Cintiq 21UX. Now, I've been using Wacoms since the mid-90s. I'm a big fan of drawing tablets. Yeah, I remember when Wacom first brought out Cintiqs, and I loved them. The first time I saw a Cintiq, the first time I saw a picture of one, it was like, oh, that's amazing, must have. And I went and got one, and it was amazing. I loved it to bits. Screen wasn't big enough. Used it for a good while, but screen wasn't big enough. So I traded it up, and the Cintiq 21 UX that I had was brilliant. But I used it every day, 7 days a week. You're talking like 12 hours average, sometimes longer, for 7 days a week, and the screen can only take so much. And it got very scuffed, very worn. I've still got it here. But it was just a case of, I'm a freelance illustrator. I can justify this as a business cost. And you end up saying to yourself, I need to buy equipment, otherwise I'm just going to end up giving this money to the government in taxes anyway. So why not? Realistically, it's brilliant. It's so much better. The amount of screen space I have, I use Corel Painter a lot, and that has a lot of palettes. It's not just about how big your painting is, but you have a lot of palettes. The palettes take up X amount of room on your screen. The bigger screen, the less you have to worry about that. So, but yeah, it was a. I know some people say about the price, but I've heard some people say it's a ridiculous amount of money, or one thing or another. Wacom put a lot of money into their R&D that other companies don't do. Wacom have pretty much been handling their research and development for this industry on their own for the past 30 years. Realistically speaking, their costs are more than justified. And I don't think... I think these are professional devices. And if you're a professional using them, you look at the cost and you think, these devices do pay for themselves. I understand it from somebody else's point of view if they're doing this for a hobby and they're saying, wow, that's an expensive device. But I don't think Wacom ever intended for someone drawing as a hobby to ever use this device. That's how they sell so many Intuos devices. Sorry, I published a couple of videos on my channel at the moment about the new Dell Canvas, which looks like a very, very nice, 27-inch HD drawing tablet. Maybe. We don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I mean, that sparked off a lot of debate in the comments. So. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's, as a professional, this kind of thing must have. I wouldn't say the taxman made me buy it, but it's certainly a good chunk of money that would have gone to him, if I didn't purchase my computer equipment. Are you a professional illustrator, by any chance, Susan? I'm going to turn on my sketch again. You know, I did think about hosting like kind of an online hangout just about the Dell, because I've been like seeing some awesome, you know, like conversations about that and just what people think in general. I think it sparked off such a great, interesting conversation in itself. You dabble. Yeah, I mean the Cintiq's brilliant, and I mean I've got the touch version here. Ooh, need to turn my brush size down because it's killing my processor going up this high. I only turn my hardness on my brushes up to about like 90% tops. And there we go. I'm actually go a bit lighter with that. There we go. That's definitely starting to look like Looney Tunes. Yeah, I think what Dell are gonna be doing, you know, by bringing kind of the Cintiq to the masses, if that's what they're doing, then I think that's gonna be awesome. If it's what they're doing, you know, I know a lot of people who want it but can't get it are excited about that, and I think that is cool. But I think at the same stroke, it is a professional device, so it's like me saying, "Well, I want a Ferrari, so Ferrari should be cheaper." When I hear in the comments when people are shouting, saying, "Oh, you know, Wacoms are ridiculously priced," it's like saying, "Well, Ferraris are ridiculously priced," but I'm not going to get upset about it. I don't know how you personally feel about that, but there have been issues with the touch element to it, um, but it's only really been once in a while when a driver's come out. I've never had any real issues with it. I'd certainly rather have the touch than not have it. You know, if that makes sense. I think the touch is pretty awesome. I mean, one thing that I find is that I don't tend to use the touch much while drawing, but I do tend to use it while I'm just doing everyday stuff like my admin and surfing the web and stuff like that. You know, if I'm stood back looking at a painting and I'll like, you know, click OK or click save or, you know, it's just little things. Nowadays, you expect all screens to be touch screens, and when they're not, it gets a bit weird. I mean, I've got a 2-year-old boy, and he tries to hit the TV, so I don't know how normal that is, but I just think I think that's how we're moving now. That everything is touchscreen. There's no point a screen not being touchscreen. And that's why I was very disappointed when I saw Mac's new MacBook Pro this year. You know, I did look at getting the new MacBook Pro this year, and then it came out and it had a touch strip, and I just looked at it and thought, I don't want a touch strip. You know, I want a touch screen with a stylus. If the MacBook Pro would have had a touch strip, would have had a touch screen with the Apple Pencil, I think they'd have made a lot of sales. As it was, I think they did poorly because they gave people a device that they weren't really, you know, people weren't hoping for. People were expecting Mac's version. People were expecting Mac's version of the Surface Book, and instead they just got another MacBook Pro with a touch strip. And I said to myself, well, I've got a MacBook Pro at the moment, and it's probably the last one I ever own. So again, you can see that I've got my little sketch in the middle of the window here. But I am actually going to start to make changes on it. Now, for the highlight for this layer, I'm actually using the grey tone from the layer above it. And that's exactly what I did with the previous layer. And that means that all the layers should be kind of mixing together, so you're starting to get this kind of, you know, hallway effect. I think I want to copy one of these circles again. Just make that a bit bigger. Change the color of that to be, that would be that color. Needs to be a bit lighter. No, it needs to be that. And I will need to do the same with that one. Just copy that. Go a bit bigger. Change the color. Now that I can actually see it, I can make it smaller again. What I will have to do on top of all these though is actually make a new layer, so I can make all these nice little detail bits on the round. Like we had some of them just going off. I could neaten all of this up later. Realistically, I should be checking them all from kind of the center point. Oops, just realised that. Go hold down shift or I get nothing on the screen. The whole point of these lines is just to give us something to kind of some kind of perspective, so it draws our eye line into the ship anyway. The one thing I don't want to do is to have it all looking too fake and computer generated, so I almost don't want it to be perfect. Like, I know these angles aren't spot on, but for me that kind of makes it, I don't know, something a bit nice about that. Just colour all these in quick. Funny thing is, because I've got this lasso on, I can't actually see which ones are coloured and which ones aren't, so I just go around them twice just to kind of hope that I've got all the gaps. There we go. Deselect. Yeah, it's kind of got them all. So you can see it's looking more like the actual illustration that I should have now. What I can start doing, even though I know it's not strictly time, but just to start making it look better, is I can grab my brush, turn my hardness down, and let me select a big brush. Come here. There you'll do. Just want to add some shadow in, like that, under each of the layers. Rather than just never use the actual layer, I want to use the, do it by brush. And again, even though you can't technically see it yet, I'm going to use multiply and knock the opacity down, like that. And then just going to add one on the layer above it. So you can see roughly there as well that something's going on. I noticed that there's a strut missing from here. I'll give it the shadow anyway, so I know in a second to come back. And that's from that layer. And we'll just quickly drop that in. And that should have been about there. That was that colour. Here we go. Use my brush. The good thing was, because we were picking colours from other layers, or shades from other layers, I know that exactly which ones they are. And That's the light. And that's the top one, so I'll add that new layer in there. Come back, just grab that black again. And just add more black in there. Like that. I think if anything, oops, I just went a bit over on that one. There we go. Just take that, pass it down a bit more. And that gives us a bit more of that hallway kind of feel that we were looking for in our original kind of sketch there. I want to obviously get that floor right there. Tell you what, I'm going to paste. There we go, because I still had that layer locked in there, so you can see the difference. And that's really, really quick and easy to do. You know, but this floor needs to really come into play now. So one thing I want to do is actually just make some kind of a grid. Need to return this back to its standard way. Quickest way to make like a floor grid is just make a square. Oops. And then just copy it. And I'm just holding down Alt and moving them. But you see, now that I've got them all selected, I can distribute the widths. There we go. Now works fine. Just grab all of them again. Oops, something went wrong. There we go. Just copy them again. Move them down. And again. And the beauty of this is all on one layer. And it's all vector. Yeah, close path. But for example, I can just, if I want more of them, I can just do that. Like, I know that'll be enough for just there, but I know I'll want more as well. So I'll just make one more copy, like that. And that's enough for me for now. So I'll keep that layer and I'll copy that. I won't use the original layer that I've made. And I can now free transform that. Move it down here. Oops. Might be better off zooming out again for this. And rotating my... You know what, I'm going to apply that. Rotate my canvas. I'll just zoom back in so you can see this bit. So you see I've rotated my canvas again so I'm back. So these walls are level. There we go. I'll just line this up the best I can with a wall and the floor. And then I need to press Command or Control if you're on a PC. Bring these edges up so it feels like a floor that's coming towards me. And I had to rotate my canvas, otherwise I'd have been at, you know, too much of a weird angle myself. I'm just trying to think about people are actually stood down a bit, so I think that's fine. Do that. Yeah. Think about, you know, where people are stood. Now it looks like my line could have gone over a bit. And I can still do that a bit. Tiny bit. Still have a tiny bit of movement in there. So that's cool. I've got a kind of a floor pattern in there now. It's even still vector, though I don't need that. But yeah, for right now that kind of works. The good thing about that is I can actually drop that in under my light. Look at that. Bang. I'll zoom in so you can actually see that. Bang. Look. I've moved that under the light so you now have the light in there on top of the tiles. And that's kind of cool. Hopefully that makes sense. This is a lot more techie than I normally like to do while drawing, but it's a good way to get the original image really, really precise. Now, this is the big difference between drawing fantasy art and drawing sci-fi art. A lot of people don't care when they're drawing sci-fi art about how precise details are. A lot of people do. It's really up to you. Personally, I say if you're drawing sci-fi art, well, drawing any art, get your fundamentals right. Your anatomy has to be right. There's no point painting something for 2-3 weeks if your anatomy's wrong. Spend 2-3 weeks on the sketch, and then you can spend a little time painting. Don't spend a little time sketching and then a lot of time painting trying to make it better, trying to make it right and correct everything. You know, I'm doing this now and then I'm going to go back to the characters. My want with this is just to get the initial background having the right atmosphere for what I'm looking for. You know, I want the background to feel right. I want the ship out the window to look and feel right. I want that right feeling of awe and emotion and the colors and everything to feel right. They're seeing a ship blowing up, and you're wondering, have they done this? Are these their friends? This, is this hope? Is this loss? I think, there's a lot going in there. But I've still got my original floor panels. But, and I won't delete them. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's, I've got to get that emotion captured properly. Now that this is kind of looking like I've got some of the basic fundamentals down, what I want to start doing is I want to start working out I want to start making it look real, less 2D, because at the moment it looks a bit flat. So, that's kind of the first thing I'm going to have to do. Now, what I could do is I could grab some of this space here, because it's quite easy. It'd be easier if I was zoomed in. Just select some of this. Oops. And there we go. And just select the darker color from underneath. Maybe a slightly smaller brush. Paint in the shadows there. There we go. See how they're instantly brought to life there. Those rafters. I mean, these units here just don't look thick enough. What I want to do is I just want to go in and kind of bulk those up. But they'd probably be thicker overhead than they would at the side. Ooh. There we go. So I could actually do that. Like that. Just bulk that whole thing up. Actually, I added a bit of extra colour in there and I just don't think that worked, so I'm going to get rid of that for now. There we go. The same on the layer below, just thicken that one up as well. I might just do that from the underneath only. Like that. There you go. This helps add something. But what I can also do is just make my brush smaller and go in. Start adding those lines that we had on the kind of the initial sketch. Because some of these lines obviously don't connect to anything. Oops. Don't want my eraser to be a giant fluffy eraser. Like that. There we go. But you see, now I can just grab these and just add lines anywhere I want. I'm working on the top layer in the folder here and pretty much do whatever I want. I can turn that little layer back on so you can see all the ones in there. I'm not sticking to it exactly. It's not kind of like an action plan of how it's exactly going to look, but at the same time, you know, I'm trying to keep it fairly accurate. See, these two lines are different colours, so I'm just going to almost blend them together. And one thing to remember is I don't want this to be perfectly sharp and crisp and clean when I'm done. This is going to be like a painting. I can't stand things that are too horribly clean. So, for me anyway, I'll be fine when this is kind of like a little less painted, a little less digital and a lot more painted. But the good thing is, right now this is like a brilliant base for us to start off at. You know, a lot of these lines as well, we can go down the side of them with like a black line to make these metal panels kind of pop. And even where they come over, we can take this darker grey from above and kind of continue that line there. Because I think this is our base. Now we have that in place. I'll keep some of this symmetrical. That wasn't. It's too far over. There we go. I'm going to keep that one as well. And maybe we're going to bring a touch of this colour in, just to notch these in like there as well. Let's make a little notch. And on that one, make a little notch. And like on this bit, select that colour. Continue it round. Then select the darker colour from underneath and make a little notch. I mean, that's incredibly boring to go around and do the entire way, But believe me, I have done a lot worse. And there, just select that colour, smudge them in a bit. And make a little notch. I literally go around the painting and do that for the entire piece. The more lines you add, the more times you have to do it. And it's madness, and I've spent entire days just doing things like that. But it's doing things like that that will sell the image and make it look like, when people see it, they go, wow, that's detailed. You know, and that's what I love doing. End of the day. You still there, Susan? I'm just going to refresh my thing. Oh, people are dropping like flies. I'm going to have to be more interesting. Who have we got there? Where are you from? And are you an artist? And what are you drawing on? And in? Are you drawing in Photoshop? Are you using a Wacom tablet as well? Are you watching this because you want to find out more about Photoshop and Wacom tablets, etc., etc.? If so, let me know. Maybe I can give you some advice, tips. Feel free to jump in on the comments. Oops. You. Good to see you still there, Susan. We're doing alright for attendance though. We've got a few people watching. I didn't tweet this out before I jumped in. I wish I would have sent like a couple of tweets out to let people know that I was live streaming. I should have done. I never do that. My tweets are always totally impromptu. So you only find out about it if you either just stumble upon it or if you subscribe to me and turn on notifications. I know, part of me likes that. Part of me likes the fact that it makes it a bit more exclusive than the only people who are going to know are my subscribers. What spec PC have I got? I'm actually using a MacBook Pro 2012. Yay. I was going to upgrade and then didn't because Mac didn't release anything good. I have vowed never to buy a Mac again. As childish as that sounds. Mac obviously aren't bothered about creatives anymore, so it's kind of like, we won't be bothered with you then. I think, you know, now it's just a case of next time I upgrade, I'm either gonna go for a dedicated desktop, scratch build my own PC. I used to do that back in the 90s. That's what I used to do. I used to scratch build PCs, and I got out of it because it was like a drug addiction. You know, I was like teetering on the edge of water cooled systems, and they were just coming in when I was getting out of it. I was like, no, 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 no. It's like they're really cool as well. I love the, I loved it, but it's kind of like it's a big hobby to be in. I think now even I don't know if it's even more of a big hobby now or not, because there's more to get. Back then there wasn't as much, but I don't know. I just felt like I was spending too much on it and too much time in it. So I remember I was using Macs at work, and it was just like, you know what? I'm using them at work. Should be using them here too. When I started working for myself, that's when I switched over to Mac properly. But it's like next phone I buy, next tablet I buy, next, none of it's going to be Apple. It's the one thing I can guarantee you. Let's have a zoom out and see how this looks. See, that's starting to look good. It's starting to look like a better, more filled out. It needs something down here now, but if I just turn off that layer that I've been working on, see, it now feels a little more filled out. Nothing down here connects. This is my only problem. But if I go back at my original sketch, it didn't really connect either. But that's because the characters are covering there and the white border's there, and you didn't need it. Now if I turn off my sketch and look there again, that's where the character is. Probably don't need it. That said, I do kind of want to get my background more or less right. So I'm just going to do this bit on a new layer because it's part of me that feels this has to be at least a little right. So I'm going to rotate my canvas again. What I can do here is I can actually move this down to the bottom of my screen just to check how lined up it is. Like that, a bit of a cheat. Like there, you see? Lined up along the bottom of my screen. So that's pretty much straight. Then I can just go to my square lasso tool and I can say, right, we're going to create like just a foot shape. And I'm going to do the same on the other side as well. Like that. And this is where it gets messy because this isn't made out of like nice fill coloured shapes. This is just going to be me just painting within this. Because I'm only attempting to do this roughly. But you can pretty much just do the same thing or just reconstruct new feet as a whole in the same way that, you know, we did it in the beginning. I just don't happen to think there's any reason to do that for something that's most likely going to be hitting. And considering that, you know, most of this work is going to be a base for something else. There we go. That's more or less fine. The good thing is I'm pretty much using pen pressure to do a lot of this work. Just going over the top bit to give me a shape there. And scooch over to the other side. Just do the same. No, that's fine. There we go. Just add a bit more light onto this bit there, that side. Deselect. Zoom out. Looks fine. Because that's all I wanted was something just quick to just tidy in there. Like I said, chances are you're never going to see that. So, it doesn't really matter. One thing I do want to do is start. I can do this back on the layer underneath. Start just adding in more of these kind of lines. Oops, I'm going to have to zoom in. Otherwise you guys can't see anything. So I've just realised I'm drawing a load of detail down in that corner where someone's probably going to be. See, going back to that thing of where people actually are, yeah. But this corner up here, probably not going to be too many people, so I'm probably alright if I concentrate some nice detail up here. Plus we've got the ship there, so probably for the best if we do. Add a little circle, a little dot inside. We all know that kind of symbol. Yeah, just getting some nice lines in there, that's the important thing. I could even throw in like a semicircle. Maybe even a small panel. Now we'll do the same over here. Have another small panel. You know, it's the terribly not very maybe exciting part about sci-fi art, but this is me streaming more so you guys can watch me actually paint real stuff rather than give a tutorial. Like I say, I needed to get some work done and thought, hey, I'll just live stream it at the same time. I don't want this line to continue all the way through, and I just started doing it. So I'm just going to have to undo that. And I'll start it again over here. Because I have to maintain these, you know, these barriers. But you have to remember as well that you create rules when you draw something. So for example, if I draw that line like that, this line has to be the same. If I add a little touch of light there, I have to add it there, there, and there. There. Maybe not everywhere, but I have to make it convincing. You know. See how I'm just drawing by hand and I'm drawing over that lovely crisp straight line. You might want to keep that line lovely and crisp. You might not. All depends on your personal style. I like to break the actual lines. think if they're too crisp, I'll just never. It just looks too fake. There we go. I'm liking how that looked though, being broken up into 3. There we go. Zoom out and have a look. To me, that's looking, yeah, that's looking pretty good so far. I'm kind of happy with that, how that's turning out. I think it's just about continuing on and, you know. No, I've never sketched in a VR headsuit. I thought about it before, and yes, I'd like to. You know, I'd certainly like to give it a go. But one concern that I have is that my pen has nothing to push against. So it's like, is that actually a concern? You know? So yeah, part of me thinks about that. And actually, one thing I would like to do is I'd like to try sculpting in one. You know, actually holding my hands out and try like that. To me, the idea of that would be cool. But I've never really looked into painting in VR. And I could have done, but I haven't done, simply because I just assume that, are we even there yet? Have we even, you know, every time I see a little demo of it, it doesn't look that good. I might be really wrong though. Maybe this is something I have to do a bit of research on. See in practice. If I could put on my VR and use the same programs that I'm using currently, perfect. The trouble is that you have to use all new apps and all new programs and stuff like that. It's kind of like, you want to change the way that I work totally. I think that's one thing that kind of gets me, is that actually can't I just have a new workspace? Can't I just use? Can't it just be a replacement for like an alternative for my Wacom or something? You know, could you imagine like Wacom VR headsets? You know, I'm not saying I actually want Wacom to make anything like that, I'm just saying. So I just switch it on and start using Photoshop basically. I can switch it on and start using Painter. This line has gone somewhere totally really weird on me. Now, if I remember rightly, there's a circle all the way down at the bottom. That's the one. Rasterize that. Turn the layer lock on. And use a big brush. Bigger than that. And this is the reason. I want to be able to just add some highlights here just to make sure that it's obvious this is actually a window. This black ring. Now I could actually go for a smaller brush and go for a small, a brighter highlight. But I'd probably do that right here where the light crescents with a just fake that light a bit there as well. Remember, we're going to have explosions on the ship, so probably do it up here as well. Like that. And this light at the bottom it looks a bit full on at the moment. At the moment it looks like we've got this dead space kind of thing going, but when we look back at the original sketch and we see the explosion, now it kind of makes sense as to the light coming through. If I close that up for a second and I say, oops, close that properties bar. And I say we put some popcorn explosions in. I think we had some over here as well. Oh, that was it. It's done there. That made more sense. Because that looks like a fuel cell thing. So if we do that, then the idea of the explosion kind of makes more sense on this outer rim here and all this light coming forwards. You know, remember we're going to have characters as well. We're going to have somebody here. We're going to have somebody here. And then we're going to have somebody here. It's going to look very cool. One thing I do want to do there, maybe just grab the sketch of that, turn it to overlay, just in anticipation of something else that might come later. Turn it down so it doesn't look so sketchy. Again, all the time what I'm trying to do is maintain that theme, the feeling, the emotion of what I'm going for, more than the detail. The detail will come, the detail will always come, but only ever as long as I maintain the theme of what I'm going for. What I've noticed down here is I can actually connect the floor so if I just do this I can connect the floor panels. Like that. You know, I can neaten this up in a bit, but yeah. Or I'll just erase it. But basically, yeah, I can connect all those floor panels, which is pretty cool. Imagine it's kind of like at this height you have all the panels on the floors and vents and stuff like this. What it really needs is somewhere for R2 to plug in. See all these bits that I painted over now popping up in wrong colours. So just have to go around and check them. See, all up there. because they're not on the layer where I was painting. And that's fine, not bothered about that. 2 seconds. You know, what I should say as well is to do that. Give it that highlight that goes in. Part of me thinks that looks really wrong though, so I won't do it. Those details are so small though that really, something I can come back to later. Again, more atmosphere than anything right now. Still just treating this as like a sketch at the moment. I'm still very much in like the decision making process of it all. But that's very cool. I'll turn these into lights. There we go. Should really have a few of them just dotted around in general. Again, I can just neaten these up later. And all the time what we want to be doing is creating like this spinning pattern. That's the one thing we've got to try and remember. Try and blend this floor panel. Just seems impossible to blend it at the moment. Oh, they. There we go. Perfect. Yeah, I'm happy with how that's looking for now. I'm going to start dotting in some characters, even though really by now I shouldn't. But it's just, this is just to help me, well, just to help you stopping being bored at any point, but also to help me kind of gauge where my characters will go. So, just collapse these folders down. Oh yeah. Yep. turn on my sketch. I'm going to create a new folder. For right now, all I'm going to do is grab this character. I'm just using my lasso tool. And quickly just drawing round. Now, one thing I pretty much can tell you straight away actually is that I'm pretty sure character going here is no longer going to be female. So I can get rid of any female characteristics. For example, long hair. I mean, there's characteristics here that we can't exactly get rid of from the sketch. For example, the feminine stance. We can correct it slightly maybe, but we can't really get rid of that. That's fine. Oops. Select that layer, copy, select the folder I want and paste. You can see old sketch character now in situ. Go back to my sketch, zoom in, I actually think this is where the female character is going to go. And I think that's, that's as much as I'm going to get with that character. So copy again and paste again. You see that character is now pasted there. Once more, just for luck. This one's obviously a lot quicker. No worries, Susan. You have a great night. The whole thing will be on YouTube anyway, so you can watch it back whenever you fancy. Remember to spread the word if you enjoyed what you saw. You can always stop by, support me on Patreon, and get Photoshop files, brushes, PSDs, etc., etc. And that's at patreon.com/LawrenceCanDraw. Now it's funny because we talked about I could just make this character here. I could make this character into a male character. Like I say, I've chopped off the hair and other things that made this character feminine. So I could just make that character a male character now. You know, just beef the character up a bit. The other option is to actually, because they're all on separate layers, start moving characters around. I mean, I don't need to do any of that. I could just, draw them all from scratch anyway. I think it's actually better to just change the characters that we've already got here. Bearing in mind, this is still a lot rough. But that's what we'll do. First things first, I want to clone all three of these layers and keep the originals just so I've got them there. Not that I think I'll ever have to go back to them. And the first thing to do is just actually kind of go in and make amends to physical problems here. Like the arm is too long. So's the forearm. Oops. I think overall the head shape looks a bit squished, so I'm just gonna remember there is no long hair anymore. I think as well, the whole pose is a bit off. It's one of the times when I need my white border just to check the character's place in the composition. Like, even there is absolutely fine. But I think that's where she originally was. Remember, I've got a title to come on this book as well, so I can't move her like there or anything silly. But I can move her back a bit. I think making the man at the back is going to be easy enough to make him a woman, but making this one a man is going to be a little more troublesome. I think the first thing to do is actually straighten her back up a bit. Just grabbing a razor, give her some hair around there and at the back. There. Feels less like long hair should be there now. I need to move this whole back leg. Strange as it feels, that kind of feels like the right angle to me. Just need that to connect. I drew this very sketchy as, you know, like almost like comic book art. I was sketching, but now it's not sketch time anymore, so there's no more line art here. I didn't even give this character a foot, you know. I think this character is running. Probably explains a lot. And that's why this leg is there as well. Oops. Broader shoulders. Get rid of that hair once and for all. I'm not worried too much about what they're wearing at the moment. I'm just worried about poses and getting the atmosphere right. So for me, poses and lighting, that's it. That's it at the moment. You know, I'm more worried about this little dab of lighting under the foot here and how that all works than I am about costume. See, he's looking a lot more mannish though. And I've barely masculine. Sorry, mannish. And I've barely changed anything. So shoulders and hips. Yep, it's all in the shoulders and the hips. You know, I could have left him with that long hair. You'd have still thought it was a man. And the one up there, I just got to add in a bit more of a feminine pose. To be honest, I don't think the pose there was too unfeminine. I think that just really means spending more time on the buttocks. As bad as that sounds. More of that S shape. You know, knock some of the shoulder off there. See, I've got a lot of muscle structure on here going into the neck. Really, to make it more feminine, I should lose that. Also, just at the moment, just looks like a more older man, which is fine as well. So you get down to the hips and then just make the hips a bit more robust. Now the hips make it look like it's a female figure. More delicate joints. So here at the wrist, take that in. You know. And at the elbow, add a bit more light. And at the nook of the shoulder, the neck even. And even here, just extend the chin a bit, and it's all just random light, but I mean, of course we can, like, you know, add that long hair back in that we had on the other character. It's a bit of a scary face thing going on at the moment, but cool. And there we go for that. Zoom out. She looks more female, at least. Like I say, I'm not trying to do the perfect thing at the moment. Just go back to this first character, knock on the layer lock. I'm going to change my brush and go for a mixer brush. Just knock my hardness down to like 70% or so. And this is just so we stop looking at it so much like a sketch. And this will just help to knock all the sketchiness out of it. I don't want to ruin any detail, obviously. The good thing is with something like this, it might actually help add detail to it. You know, the blender brush is there to do a job, and you can fine tune the blender brush just to add in the details you want. Here's a tip: if you love the blender brush, then in Photoshop, then you're using the wrong program. The blender brush is brilliant, but realistically, Painter is the god of blender brushes. Painter is all about blending. So if you're loving what I'm doing right now, if you love using blender brushes and mixing paints and doing stuff like that, then Painter is the application you should be using more than any other. But you see how instantly now this all looks like muscle structure rather than like anything else. Oops. I'll just bob quickly onto this guy here, lock his layer control, do the same. And the trick I always find with the blending brush is not to just do one thing and go mad. It's lots of little touches. Especially when you first start on an area. Otherwise you'll lose too much detail anyway. You see, instantly he looks better just for that. Right, so that's a few hours spent on that. And my only real aim is to start this off. Nothing more, nothing less. You know? But that's how I start the basic fundamentals and get everything started off right. You know? Because this way I know where things are headed, where they're going to go, and how they're going to look. And now I can carry on with the next stage of it all. I will come back and carry on this live stream. For right now, I just need the toilet and a cup of coffee though. So I will catch you next time.